A frosty night in Washington, D.C. Snow fell softly, blanketing the empty streets of Washington, D.C. The biting wind added an extra chill to the already cold night. Inside a small, dimly lit diner, James, an elderly man dressed in worn military attire, sat in a secluded corner. He clutched a now cold cup of coffee in his trembling hands. The coffee's faint warmth was his only solace from the icy world outside. The diner was quiet, the only sound being the occasional clatter of dishes. The snow outside gave the dimly lit streets a desolate appearance. Amid this tranquility, Donald Trump entered the diner. His leather shoes left snowy imprints on the wooden floor as he stepped inside. His face bore the fatigue of a long day. Unlike his usual taste for grandeur, tonight he sought solace in the simplicity of this humble place. He chose a seat near the window, where the soft glow of streetlights reflected on the frosted glass. But as he sat down, his eyes wandered to the corner, where James sat motionless. The man's old military uniform, lined face, and deep-set eyes seemed to tell a story, one that tugged at Trump's curiosity. A waitress approached with a menu, but Trump waved it aside, instead asking in a low voice, "Who is that man?" The waitress glanced at James before replying softly, "He's a veteran. Went through a lot in the war. I don't know much about him, but I've heard he's homeless now. He only ever orders a cup of coffee." Trump's gaze lingered on James, as though trying to place him in a memory that refused to surface. After a long pause, he stood up and walked toward the old man's table. The first conversation. "Excuse me, sir," Trump said gently. "May I sit with you?" James slowly lifted his gaze, his tired, deep eyes meeting Trump's. After a moment, he nodded faintly, allowing him to sit. "You served in the military, didn't you?" Trump asked cautiously. James smiled, a mix of pride and sorrow. "Yes," he replied in a raspy voice, "but that was a long time ago. No one remembers anymore." Trump sat silently for a moment, his eyes fixed on James. There was something hauntingly familiar about him. "It's strange," Trump finally said. "I feel like I've seen your face or heard your name before." James chuckled dryly. "I know who you are, the former president, but I'm afraid my name isn't one worth remembering." Trump's curiosity deepened, as though an elusive memory was teasing the edges of his mind. A shocking revelation. James began to speak, his voice low but steady. "In 2005, during the war in Baghdad, my unit was ambushed. Bullets rained down on us from every direction. I knew I couldn't save everyone, but I tried. One man was trapped under the rubble, gravely injured. I pulled him out." His voice faltered for a moment before he added, "That man was your brother, Robert Trump." Trump froze, the revelation hitting him like a thunderbolt. "You saved my brother's life?" he whispered. "We never knew who he was. We tried to find out, but we couldn't." James gave a faint, weary smile. "Yes, but I lost half my team that day. Their faces still haunt me every night. Sometimes I wonder why it was me who survived." A new resolve, Trump leaned forward, deeply moved. "Men like you are the true heroes of our nation. You shouldn't have to live like this." James shook his head. "I don't need pity. But if you want to help, don't just help me. Help others like me. What we need is dignity, not charity." Trump nodded solemnly. "Your story won't end here. I promise to do something for you and for the countless others who've been forgotten." A new beginning. Days later, James stood on a grand stage, his worn military uniform now gleaming under the spotlight. The auditorium was packed. Veterans of all ages, journalists, community leaders, and everyday citizens had gathered to hear him speak. Taking a deep breath, James began. "I was a soldier once. We fought, believing that when we returned, we'd be welcomed. But the reality was different. Many of us came back with invisible scars, only to be forgotten." His voice trembled slightly, not with fear but with the weight of his words. "We don't need empty thank yous or medals. We need acknowledgement. We fought for you, for your peace, for your safety. And now, all we ask is that you see us, hear us, and remember us." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, but James stood still, his gaze steady. "I don't have much time left," he continued, "but if my final days can inspire even a little change for those who've served, I'll leave this world in peace." A legacy that lives on. Shortly after his powerful speech, James passed away. But his story didn't end there. Moved by their conversation, Trump founded a nonprofit organization, James's Hope, dedicated to helping homeless veterans. The initiative provided housing, mental health services, and job training, becoming a beacon of hope for thousands. At the entrance of the first James's Hope Center, a bronze statue of James was unveiled, capturing his unwavering spirit. Beneath it, an inscription read, "Never let those who fought for this country be forgotten." Veterans, families, and ordinary citizens gathered for the ceremony. A young mother, holding her children close, wiped her tears and said, "This center has given us hope, something we thought we'd lost forever." As Trump addressed the crowd, he said, "James gave us more than we could ever repay. He didn't ask for help for himself, but for others. His legacy is a reminder that our heroes must never be forgotten." James's story, born in a quiet diner, had become a nationwide movement, a powerful testament to the sacrifices of those who serve and the responsibility of a nation to honor them.